Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Wilds. Today we're following up on a video from last week, advanced specific tips for dedicated hunters. There we had an item focus for that video, but now we're going to talk more about general useful stuff you might not even know about. So let's just begin. Right, to kick us off, I want to highlight something actually out of game that you should be making use of, especially if you're thinking about elemental weapons and understanding how to make best use of them. This is essentially a Monster Hunter Wilds monster database. And so what you can do is pull up any of the monsters and take a look at their true weaknesses. Instead of that really vague information in the in-game limited version of the Hunter Notes, we can get exact numbers thanks to this database. So with arkveld, as we know, dragon is your best option, but really it's a terrible option unless you're hitting the powered and weakened versions of the chain blades, where it's actually fairly respectable at 25. But it really shows us that the best hit zone is actually the chain blades once they're properly exposed and powered, rather than say the head, which you might normally expect. So we can do this for every monster in the game, which is fantastic. I'm going to ask Josh to link it in the description. For example, it gives us a great awareness of the true situation with gore magala, who is quote unquote most weak to dragon, right? But the truth is, it's only the antenna for 25, whereas fire is only 5 less than that on the antenna, but then double the value on the wing arms at 20 compared to 10. So the reality of the best element for gore is more than likely fire, not dragon. But to continue on from that in-game, there is the way to check those weaknesses. Again, the information is really meh here. But under the monster field guide, large monster, we can take a look at the information about it and see what it tells us. But did you know you don't have to pull up the monster field guide every single time? Let's say I'm about to do this hunt on the arkveld, and I want to just quickly check what it's weak to. Well then, in the quest that you're about to do when you're looking at it, there's actually other tabs. Such as on this third tab, the detailed info, which is the same thing as the hunter notes. So we can see all the same information and quickly check anything we might want to. This next tip actually comes from the comments of our item related video, and it's to do with the support ship, which I highlighted during that. As I said in that, I request medicinal items specifically so that we're able to get all kinds of really valuable stuff that usually takes a lot of more resources or you have in smaller numbers. And this is a great example of that. Demon Druid adamant pills, mega armor skin, all that good stuff. But there were a few comments on that video that said, if you actually intentionally buy the equipment offered during these, you essentially cull them from the offering list. So eventually you're left with more actual items you care about. But this does mean you have to kind of go through the guild point cost of purchasing these items so they're gone from the pool. So it's obviously a trade-off, but if you've got points spare, then it sounds like certainly a good thing to do long term to make better use of your supply ship farming. Next up, something to do with the whole resting system, which is incredibly useful. As I said in the last video, natter with all the supplies, what you can do is refresh things, progress time, and that will give you new trades, but also progress the material shares. So as you can see, I've got 14 out of 16 right now. If I rest, that's going to go up to 16 out of 16. I also do lots of resting in general to refresh the list, to try to find particularly good hunts and save them as investigations, of course. But if you're going to rest, you got to think about the oilwell basin and its time of inclemency for the fire spring, when you specifically rest to the time of inclemency. So this triggers the fire spring, which is going to trigger the festival that happens here. And as you guys know, Natter has festival rewards, which is exactly what you're using to reinforce your artian weapons. So if you're resting anyway and you don't need a specific time, choose inclemency and you'll also generate festival shares at the same time as doing everything else. So certainly worth doing. Next up, another way to maximize the investigations you're actually doing. Now, as we know, the great hunts on multiple monster hunts can be some of the most potent things you can find. What you're looking for in that case is going to be something like a tempered tier 3 and another monster. Arkveld is generally the best target because tempered arkveld increases the potential. All of these bonus rewards could be 2. And I got about half rolls on this one. So it's the tempered arkveld that has the highest tier rolls. He might be tier 3 just like Gore here, but Gore isn't getting 2 relics per box, whereas as you can see a tempered arkveld is. So that's why, again, arkveld's just the highest valued monster in the game. Hopefully they mix it up in the first update. So in regards to those double hunts, I want you to pretend that this is something you care about as a hunt. You want to make the most of it. So we have Guardian Deshagama here and Guardian Ebony Odegron. So what I can do is save this as an investigation, but then I can go to the region specifically. Let's say that I've just saved the investigation like you saw me do, and I've come here to arkveld, gore, or some sort of apex. In this case, it's specifically the ebony odegron, the other monster in that quest, so I can come here and create a second or completely separate investigation, getting to hunt that monster multiple times. If that was tempered arkveld with the best rewards, that would allow me to get way more investigations off that one monster. As you can see, I've got that guardian odegron there in this double hunt, and now I've also got from the same odegron that exists on the map, a separate investigation. 6 hunts of that monster. So again, if that was a tier 3 monster, that's quite a lot of value. Not to mention, I can also go do these as a field survey immediately right now to add up just one more hunt. In this case then, I'd not be getting 3 investigations and 1 field survey, I'd be getting 6 investigations and 1 field survey. 7 hunts of that monster. Pretty awesome to know. Okay, so now for some tips to do with the palico and the seikret, starting with the seikret. If we press up on the D-pad, we call the seikret over. If we press right, we swap weapon. If we press left, we can check the supply pouch. Awesome. But did you know there's another button, which is literally down on the D-pad? Down on the D-pad has the seikret come pick you up and you'll go running in whatever direction you want to go. Whereas if I have something marked like that dashagama over there, let me try it again. If I press up on the D-pad, instead of going a random direction, the seikret immediately finds a route to my target, allowing me to quickly go where maybe I want to go. So if you don't want to go where your current waypoint is, you can stop the seikret, but when you're ready to go straight to your target or whatever waypoint you have, you start the movement by pressing up on the D-pad. This is a really nice tip specifically for me, because the old way that I've been doing it is opening up the map and then going, okay, I'm not moving towards my marked target for some reason, let me unmark it and remark it, and now the seikret's going. Certainly not as effective as just pressing up on the D-pad to do the same thing. Feels a little bit niche, but hopefully that helps you guys too, because it's helped me. And also, while I'm here, I said this in videos at the start of the release of the game, but seikret drifting is a thing. You just hold R2 or the stop button and turn, and it does a full 180 like that. Kinda reminds you of the old palamute drifting, but with no speed boost at the end. Still a pretty convenient way to quickly turn around, should you need to. Then we have the quick tip for setting up your palico. Obviously, you might want to just make whatever looks the coolest or is furthest down the list for maximum damage. But when it comes to forging palico equipment, I want you to consider 2 weapons in particular. We have the Nerzilla weapon and we have the Lalabarina weapon. The reason for that is because they have status on them. So Lalabarina's weapon provides paralysis and Nerzilla provides sleep. What matters more to you? What are you going to get the most use out of? By having the palico have one of these weapons, it's going to happen at some point during the hunt. I already run quite a lot of paralysis gear. It will slightly help that build up, but won't really matter. So personally, I prefer sleep, giving me a nice wake up hit with barrel bombs or a big heavy weapon. But you know, paralysis is incredibly helpful too. The DPS of your palico is something to think about. Getting the free DPS window of a sleep and a paralysis goes a long way, perhaps further than running one of these highest weapons. Next up, a quick highlight of my favorite feast, just because it's specifically got a buff that provides you extra carves when you're hunting monsters. So extra rewards, more materials to work with, certainly a nice concept. And it's really easy. Whenever you get Mackey's feast option in the oilwell basin, that's what provides that extra carve buff. It's a bit weird, the whole meal system. You get extra raw damage, extra defense, extra element resistance compared to any meal you'll eat yourself. You don't quite get the best DPS skills every time, but overall, it does give you quite a lot of value for just the raw and defenses that it gives you. But Mackey's in particular giving that extra carve, it means you're usually getting more resources, sometimes a lot more resources at the end of a hunt. So just something to be aware of. Maximizing your hunts can also come down to what you're wearing before the hunt. As I said last time, I actually have a special buffing set that provides me with speed eater, item prolonger, and free meal, allowing me to get a free use out of a lot of my consumables. Item prolonger makes them last 50% longer. And then speed eating, you just do it all very quick. So a demon drug, right, lasts 30 minutes by normal. With item prolonger 3, it lasts 45 minutes. That's really nice. But it still hits the same stuff with demon powder and demon drug, a 50% increase. A lot of people were asking in the comments, does this actually work though? So what they mean by that is, let's say I take the demon drug and instead of being 30 minutes long, it's 45 minutes long. And then, now that I've done my buffing up in my buffing set, I quickly swap back to the real set that I want to run for the hunt. And the buff is active still, and it's still lasting its 45 minutes. So yeah, the buffing set, that's the reason for it. You take the buffs, swap to real gear, and at the same time benefit from having longer lasting materials, and those materials are used less. Also, might as well say it, as you can see, my timer is currently not moving on the food buff. The reason for that is because we're in a base camp. Whenever you're in any base camp, your buffs that are currently active do not tick down. So if you want to go at AFK or consider anything for a little bit, but you don't want to waste the time on your buffs, just come back to the base camp, it'll pause the timers. And now a quick note on these buffs that you should be using before hunts where you're really tryharding and trying to be efficient. There's Demon Drug, Mega Demon Drug, Might Seeds, Demon Powder, and Might Pills. If you didn't realize, these all stack together. The only thing that doesn't stack is Demon Drug and Mega Demon Drug. So your regular Demon Drug will provide you with 5 raw for its duration, where Mega is 7. So it does have notable increases to the cost of actually crafting these, only providing 2 more raw. If that's worth it to you, then consider that. But again, use a buffing set to maximize the resources you have. The Might Seed and Demon Powder both provide 10 raw. So that and a Mega Demon Drug is 27 raw for the opening section of the fight. Whereas the Might Pill is 25 raw on its own, which is pretty incredible. But the problem here is it lasts like half a minute. So you want to pop it in the middle of a fight to maximize the DPS, like I said in that item video. But there is something I need to explain on top of this in the way that Might Pill doesn't stack on all of that other damage, but it does work better in wilds. You see, in the old way that it worked, Might Seed would be on and then you get 10 raw. But if you were to eat a Might Pill during that, which was 25 raw, that would overwrite the Might Seed. So when the Might Pill runs out, the seed will be gone too, you'd have to eat another one. The new way that it works in wilds is nicer, but it still isn't stacking the damage. So when you eat a Might Pill, it will still overwrite the Might Seed, but when it runs out, the Might Seed buff will return, instead of you needing to eat another seed. So it's real nice quality of life there, but just as a little heads up, it won't stack together. But you know, eating a Might Pill mid-fight, like when you've just downed a monster and you're going to go on a long DPS window, is still certainly worth it. To make sure you've got enough resources, you make use of the farm, like we said last time, and a gathering set. The gathering set just really focuses on running Geologist and of course Botanist, but we did get a tip in regards to something we could weave into this build to make it even better for gathering. That is the special cloth sets that you get by trading with Natter and the NPCs. So you've got the Azus set, the Suja set, the Sealed set, Death Stench, so on and so on. As you can see, this provides group skills, Forager's Luck, and it increases the chance of finding rare gathering points. So you might just find more rare items, and they also have reasonable slots on them in general. So that was a great tip to consider, and so I've done exactly that. With Death Stench, the Battle Mail, and the Suja Sash, weaving in some hunger resistance, and activating that imparted wisdom of Forager's Luck. So consider that for your gathering sets. Next, a quick mention of the Farcaster item versus the fact that you can base camp fast teleport. The Farcaster consumable item is kind of a smoke bomb you pop down and it instantly takes you back to camp. You use this if you're worried about carting or need to go restock or desperately get out of the situation you're in. But in wilds, you can fast open the map, press right on the D-pad and immediately go to the base camp by just pressing X or A forward a few times. It can be done super quick and ultimately results in not needing the Farcaster item at all. So being aware of that trick could be something to think about. But in regards to the camps, there's something that I hadn't realized I really should be making use of that I want to talk about today. Your pop-up camps have special camp gear, and while most of it is cosmetic, one of it is not. That's the barrel specifically, which is the same thing that we were using in the training part of the first story mission. So what that does is it puts down a barrel at each of your pop-up camps. You will need to manually do that for each locale. But yeah, then you have a barrel to hit. And for certain weapons, that's going to build up lots of different resources. So in the case of Dual Blades here, what I've done is I've filled up my Demon Gauge ready to go before I've even really entered the fight. So now I can go run over to the monster and start the hunt for real, already powered up. Many weapons are going to benefit from being able to, say, like longsword, raise the levels of the gauge. If you're really trying to min-max, it's something to think about. Next, a quick word on whether you should make use of the normal focus mode or toggle focus mode, which basically means that I've got one button press and the focus mode is going. Then I press it again and it's done, rather than having to like hold the button down the whole time. You change the setting for this under controls on page 2, both for melee and ranged weapons, and I strongly recommend you give it a try if you haven't used toggle mode for focus mode. There are some weapons, Insect Glaive is a great example, that just have so many buttons going on, the fact that you have to hold circle to charge attacks while doing a different combo, the idea of also aiming with focus mode, holding that down at the same time, and dealing with your Kinsect, it's a lot. Now, not all weapons are remotely as complicated as managing that, right? Certainly not Switch Axe, but God, does it make things easier when you just have this toggle on. The thing is, it is undeniable that, having your focus mode on, it's slowing you down in this way where, yeah, you get to focus on the target, but you don't get to make these nice tight repositions nearly as quickly, like backpedaling and such. So there's a lot to be said about turning it on and off a bit more aggressively than people do once they have it on. Maybe it builds bad habits, but knowing that there's a toggle for it is worth trying. And while we're here in the training room, there's something I want to quickly mention. The cool detail of being able to hold R2 on a controller down to do quite a lot of different things. But the quick example of that would be specifically for release slash, which as you can see, you must press triangle, circle, and R2 and hold them down during the duration of this long animation, which, isn't too bad the first time, but talk to me after you've done it 1,000 times. So a really nice quality of life detail about this is that you can press triangle and circle and R2 to trigger it, and then let go of everything but R2, the morph button, and that still holds the full release and sends it out like normal. This applies to other weapons too. Take the charge blade here during power axe mode. The idea as I press triangle is that I'm meant to hold triangle so that when it connects with the target, holds the chainsaw into the target, getting those 4 ticks of the chainsaw damage out. So I'm holding triangle to do that. Now I'm pressing circle and holding circle. I'm pressing circle again. I'm holding it again. For some people, it might actually be smoother and easier to manage if instead of pressing the triangle and holding it, you hold R2. And so instead of holding circle, I'm actually holding R2 to get the same effect. I'm tapping the button once and holding R2 during the actual animation, which holds the chainsaw against the target. Essentially what this is doing is minimizing the amount of buttons you have to hold down at once or think about. So for charge blade, pressing R2 after you've pressed the attack could be simpler and easier to manage. Or like when jumping off a seikret to do the morph attack, I hold R2 and I get the chainsaw effect, holding me in the air a little bit as well. Are there any other weapons that you can make use of this R2 trick with? Let me know. Another thing for while we're in the training room is a fast way to target the target. When you're in the middle of a fight and you're moving around, the monster's moving around, you might lose the perfect position for it. So with focus mode or turning your body, you can move back to the target that you want. But there's a really easy trick to get back to your target. Let's say I'm facing the wrong way, the monster's just gone behind me, I press one single button and I'm facing the exact correct direction. With focus mode on, it does the same thing, but this time it turns the whole body like so, allowing you to ultra quick 180 even in those tight situations. All you need to do for this is to make sure you're actually targeting the monster, like so. I'm pressing the right stick in to do that with this monster, as it were, and have the button lay out however you want. So if you go to options and go to the third page, you have target camera control type, where you can control exactly how this works. The default one is by pressing L1 on a controller though. And as you can see, it works in 2 ways. So by pressing it once, I'll face the monster doing this quick 180. Or if I'm facing a different direction with the camera, so my hunter's looking away from me, I can double tap it and do that quick 180 to face wherever I'm looking, as another way to quickly turn the camera without slowly manually doing it. Just a pretty cool tip to mess with your camera in that way. Next up, a couple things to do with bombs, just to mention them. As you likely know, you can place a barrel bomb and then pick it up, and then you can aim it and roll it as a great wake up option. If we hold circle, we can actually pick it back up and put it in our inventory though, but there's technically a smoother way to use these. If you hold the place button, which in this case is square, instead of tapping it, what's going to happen is I'm going to immediately pull it out, already holding it, ready to throw it and roll it with the aiming like that, which is obviously significantly faster than placing it, picking it up, and then being ready. So just hold the button and you'll be able to fast pull it out. Maybe even mid-combat should you want to. Next, there are skills like Counter-Strike, which basically at level 3 will give you 25 raw if you get knocked down. However, using loads of different weapons and hyper armor, you can protect yourself from being knocked down, but still trigger the effect. But the basic, little, super cheap and easy to craft barrel bombs, they'll send you flying too, and you'll take no damage. This allows you to trigger Counter-Strike whenever you want. On that note, dahaad has that super attack that's a huge explosion where you need to pull down a rock and hide behind it. It was shown on Twitter that, hey, barrel bombs will work as a way to avoid this as well. The knockdown not only can trigger Counter-Strike, but it puts you on the floor, which is an extended period of iframes for yourself, even more so than doing the running, leaping, jump and laying on the ground. So if you find yourself in a pinch, you could barrel bomb yourself to knock yourself down to avoid all kinds of attacks like dahaad's super attack. Now let's just blast through some other stuff that's cool to know. Did you know in multiplayer that focus strikes, clashes, offsets, sneak attacks, all of this works if you time it correctly for the whole team. So what I mean is 2 people can trigger their focused strike on the same wound at the same time, or they could trigger a clash at the same time and get the benefits from it. You could go for an offset, a sneak attack. There's some sort of protection to prevent someone trying to do it and then having it basically taken from them, which I definitely appreciate. It leads to some very cool clips where you see multiple people landing a clash at the same time, but it works for focus strikes on wounds, sneak attacks, offsets, everything. So if you're a multiplayer, go for these things. But if you're on voice, maybe try to time it so everyone gets to maximize. Speaking of wounds though, in particular, I do want to reference the fact that if you target a wound on the legs, say in a bipedal monster, you have a wound on its leg, popping that seems to lead to consistent knockdowns. So if you've opened a wound on both legs, maybe make sure not to pop both of them at the same time, allowing you to save one wound for a next knockdown, just as a little way to maximize them. But yeah, there you have it. A pile of advanced hunter tips that I felt were fresh enough to include in this list. There's even more I could have said, but you know, we've spoke about a lot recently, so if you want to go check out the other tip videos, go ahead. But as always, if you guys have anything you'd like to add to these topics or suggest more tips, then let us know in the comments. But for now, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and thanks for watching. He's right behind me, isn't he?
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.